breaking news about water inequality and environmental justice just broke in New York.
What are you doing?
Good afternoon, Ms. Washington. How are you doing?
Hello, sir. Nice to meet you.
Thank you for meeting with me on
Talking about poor water quality in the South Bronx. So can you
So what are some examples of water inequality in the Bronx?
One example of poor water quality is shown in the Allenville School in the Bronx. The levels were tested for over 16 times higher than Flint, Michigan. The water tested for over 100 parts per billion, which is much higher than the EPA's action level threshold of 15 parts per billion. The action level threshold expresses a physical or health hazard requiring medical surveillance. One of the faucets on the 5th floor bathroom tested for over 400 parts per billion. And it took 2 months to get the water back on and running. However, it still has not been confirmed that there is no lead in the pipes.
Really sad to hear. But what are some examples of people in the Bronx fighting for water inequality?
Well, in the 60s, the environmental justice movement began. The people of West Harlem demanded improvements in the management of the North River treatment plant. Since the plant opened, residents complained about foul odors and respiratory problems. Over many years, the organization had many meetings with city officials, and it took a lawsuit in order for them to respond. In 1993, the We Act organization reached a $1.1 million settlement from the city of New York. And they were promised an engineering improvements to decrease air pollution. On September 23rd, a group of residents of the South Bronx marched in Manhattan carrying asthma pumps made of cardboard.
Thank you for meeting with me.
No problem.
Have a good nice day.
You too.
Yeah, hopefully we can do it again
No
another
problem.
day.
Anytime.
All right.
Hello, how are you doing?
Hello, nice to meet you.
I understand that you are a professor at Harvard University. What do you study?
I study water chemistry, actually.
Oh, okay. I would like to ask you a few questions.
Not a problem.
So, what's your thoughts on unsafe water, and what is the relationship between water inequality and race or class?
Yes, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked. The reason why they do this is because primarily minority populations have less access to open green spaces, and there are more hazardous waste sites, which causes a negative effect on quality of water and air. For example, the South Bronx currently contains, I think, to my knowledge, 9 transfer stations, almost 1/3 of the total number in New York City. Additionally, this is really the main reason for poor communities having some of the worst health outcomes in the nation. Minorities are typically overrepresented in poor communities, such as the South Bronx, which has the poorest congressional district in the country, and African Americans account for somewhere around 40 to 43% of the South Bronx community. Individuals from the Bronx are more likely to experience higher morbidity and mortality compared to white counterparts from middle or wealthier communities.
Very interesting. But speaking of this topic, what are the health consequences of contaminated water, which shows up in the higher concentrations of poor or minority communities?
Well, Mr. Martinez, many factors affect the possible impact on health, such as the age and general health status of a person, the type of contaminated water, the amount consumed, and how long the person had been drinking the contaminated water. Some of these effects include memory loss, developmental issues, as well as physical changes in height and weight. These are some effects happening in Flint, Michigan due to contaminated water. Kathy Horton, the president of Community Foundation for Greater Flint, even said sometimes it takes years for the impact of lead exposure to manifest itself. We truly do not know the fullest extent of severity of contaminated water in low-income or minority communities.
Thank you for the conversation, Mr. Simons.
No problem, it's always a pleasure.
You have a good day.
All right, you too.
What you want?
Cut it down low, low. Give me a tape up, probably.
Got you. Good, man. You doing good. Your table looks fine, bro. Oh, you good, you good. Here.
Bro, what is this? I'm not paying for the haircut.
Yo, get him out the store.
Bro, I'm not paying for the haircut, brother.
Get him out.
Hello, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, man. It's fine.
Alright. But, like, what exactly is environmental racism?
Okay. Got it. Environmental racism is a phrase that implies race plays a factor in overlooking environmental and health concerns in neighborhoods occupied primarily by people of color. I'm 84 years old now. No, I may not look like it, but I'm really old. I've been around these neighborhoods a long time, and I've seen a lot of things. I was 20 when I started working in the civil rights movement in 1954, and then I got really interested in the environment when I was working with Dr. King investigating environmental injustice in 1968. We were hopeful when the US EPA was set up, but it's been a long journey. I helped set up the protests in Afton and Warren County, Afton. You know, they dumped 6,000 truckloads of a very dangerous kind of chemical in that small community. We lost the battle, but now we are winning the war. Environmental racism was defined, and environmental justice movement was born.
Man, you're like old. And you like been through a lot, but you know, what exactly is environmental justice?
I adjust that. That comment really hurt my feelings. But I'm gonna let it rock. The environmental justice movement was a movement that was started in order for the people of Warren County to protest against the government so they could stop dumping those nasty chemicals in the area because it was really affecting them and the environment around them. Trees were dying because of the polluted groundwater leached into the soil. Citizens all around me were getting cancer. It was horrible. I actually had a friend. What was his name? It was Timmy. Timmy, he got pancreatic cancer. He was in the movement, and he died very shortly. And then they found out that it was from the chemicals in Warren County. But I continued to fight, and we fought back, and we protested. Our legacy back in North Carolina still stands, and it's continuing. Even here in New York today, I'm happy we're fighting for something.
Even though you're like really, really old, you've done a lot. And I appreciate it, man. Alright?
Alright, stay safe in these streets, brother.
Alright, you too.
Stay safe.
Alright.
Oh.
Yo, you messed up my hairline, man. Now I got my people.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching the newscast for water inequality and environmental justice. Now I said venti double pump. Yeah. No, you messed it up.